Welcome to The Power of the P, the podcast designed to help you become empowered in your truth, free of fear. I'm E.L. Brooks, your host, here to bring you expert advice and effective tools based on neuroscience to help you deal with all the stressors in life, relationships, and work. I'm here to keep you off that struggle bus through the power of the P. Are you ready? Then let's go. Welcome to The Power of the P, episode number 17. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time here at The Power of the P, let me set your expectations right now. The show's format is like a Dear John life advice show, except for I'm EL. So it's Dear EL, where followers and subscribers send in their questions of things that they're dealing and struggling with. And I'll pick one of those questions and give some insight and provide some effective tools that are usually backed in neuroscience. But as I had a client, or actually not a client, but a viewer point out, not always backed in neuroscience, right? But good advice nonetheless. And I'll offer one key takeaway at the end to log into your memory to help you become more resilient and more emotionally stable. So today we don't have any letters to share or anything like that. I just really wanted to talk about something that I've been experiencing lately, because it will lead to the topic that we're discussing today, which is living intentionally, right? So I've recently been experiencing people gravitating and commenting and coming up to me regarding my energy, right? So a few weeks ago, I was with a former client who is now a friend of mine, and we were out, and all of a sudden a stranger interrupted us and had no agenda. That gentleman just simply wanted to say, "Hey man, I like the way you carry yourself. You have good energy." And then he simply walked off, right? And my friend was like, "What the was that all about?" Right? But she was like really, really fascinated. And she's like, "I want someone to come up to me and say that." Then shortly after that, I was at a party, and a friend of my girlfriend has this little adorable daughter, right? She was around 2 years old. And I've only seen this daughter, or this little girl, once prior to this day at the party, right? And so that 2-year-old walked outside to come see me. But my girlfriend obviously thought that she was coming to see her because she has an obvious relationship with her, right? And so she picked up the little girl, and the little girl started to reach out towards me, wanting me to hold her. And so I did. And then her mother was like, "Hey, I'm getting ready to leave. This is great. You can walk her out to the car." But my girlfriend was like, "I don't want to walk her out to the car." So she went to reach for the little girl again, and she grabbed me and hugged me tighter. And everybody was like, "Wow, she's really gravitating towards you." Side note here, my belief is that kids are all connected to source, right? Especially when they're under 4 years old, to God, whoever you would like to refer to as the Almighty. And as we get older, we start to connect to fear. And if you follow this channel, you know that my belief is that source is pure love, and kids can sense that. I truly, truly, truly believe that, right? And so ever since my spiritual encounter, I've been focused and intentional about my connection to source and pure love. Now I'll go one further, right? So I'm at my other friend's house, and they have a few cats, and one of them is really, really old and very standoffish. Like, don't, like, the warnings, like, don't pet that one. If it comes out, don't touch that one. And as I sat in the house for a while, that particular cat came up to me and sat in my lap, and everybody was like, "What is that all about?" And I simply answered, "I'm on a mission to live an intentional life. And in doing so, my mission is to stay connected to my higher self. And the more that I practice this, the more I align and become that higher version of self, rarely slipping into ego, into fear, or into fight or flight." And again, my belief was what I told him is that kids and animals can sense this, because that's what they're all about. When you're intentional about life, you're really living, right? You're really thriving, no longer surviving, no longer in fight or flight, which is really fear. And that's where all the joy and all the connections come into play, right? If you're not feeling joy, then your first intention should be to reconnect back to self, right? The journey back to self love, back to self acceptance, really. And if you're feeling joy in moments, and then in other moments you're feeling doubt, right? Then your attention should be to realize that that is just a part of life. That's duality, it's polarity, it's understanding, right? And this analogy, right? That a tree has beautiful leaves, but in the fall, those leaves fall, right? And the storm, and it's the wind that clears and eliminates those leaves, those bad leaves that we no longer need, right? And that sets up the opportunity for new seeds to be planted, for new growth and new beginnings, new leaves, new opportunities. We need to adopt the mode of thinking that our emotions, really, which is the thing that gets in our way, are simply waves in the ocean, right? That's another analogy, right? And we need to just make sense of those waves, knowing that they're simply a cycle, right? We can cycle hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, or annually. But the cycles have intentions, right? They're meant to eliminate the bad that allows us to plant new seeds to grow and expand on our journey back to self. It always comes back to self, right? Back to self love, which is really the journey back to purity. And I like to keep things very simple. Purity to me simply means no judgment of self, no judgment of things, no judgment of others, which is always a judgment of self, right? It's just pure acceptance of what is. That's our main purpose in life. And once we return back to love, we can start to experience that, right? That's where we find ourselves. We find balance because we're chemically balanced. And when we're chemically balanced, we find stability and alignment. Now, we can achieve this by living intentionally, right? This allows us to focus on what we want out of life, right? What we want for ourselves, which allows us to eliminate distraction. And distraction leads to doubt, delay, and delusion, what I call the four enemies of growth and expansion. Now, the main thing that holds us back is our hidden core beliefs around lack. And we'll do another episode of how to discover your hidden core beliefs, right? It's called the 5 whys, right? And you can freeze this video right here, take a screenshot of this image. And to me, that's the purest way to discover and eliminate your core beliefs, your hidden core beliefs. But that requires you walking through some fire of your trauma, through your pain, which is tough for a lot of people, right? They can't handle the truth, or more accurately, they're tied to their victim persona that is currently serving them, or at least that they think is currently serving them, right? But the other way to break free is to understand these 10 key questions, right? That we're about to get into. So let's not waste time and let's jump right into it. So let's jump into these 10 questions, right? So what we want to do is we don't want to answer them on the surface level, right? If you do that, all you're going to do is crack your ego, right? What we want to do is we want to break open that ego, right? We want to go deep. My belief is true growth is around your personal growth and your spiritual growth. So you want to connect to that spiritual part, right? That's what's going to take this to another level and make those questions profound, right? So I'm going to give you some ideas by giving you some of my answers to some of these philosophical questions, right? And so let's go. Question number 1, who am I? That's the big one, right? That's the one that we're always trying to answer, right? So my answer to that is I'm a winner. I'm a spiritual being perfectly aligned with the infinite intelligence of the universe. I'm light energy. That's how deep you want to go, right? You want to separate yourself from all of these things that you assign meaning towards or you identify as I'm black, I'm a man, I'm this, I'm that. No. We want to go right to the core, strip it all away, basically say, I'm a winner. I'm a spiritual being perfectly aligned with the infinite intelligence of the universe. I'm light energy. Question number 2, what do you value, right? This is the part where we want to really, really focus on our core values, right? So mine is family, love, vulnerability, integrity, money, security, and luxury. So find out what your core values are and basically focus on those. Question number 3 is what are your strengths, right? So for me, my strengths are emotional stability, discipline, coaching, leadership, empowering others, learning and applying information. My ability to love with little to no judgment is also a strength of mine, right? So, question number 4, what are your weaknesses, right? In order to really, really improve, to grow both personally and spiritually, we have to take a look in that accountability mirror and really, really recognize and acknowledge our weaknesses, right? What we don't acknowledge, we can't change, right? So for me, I have weaknesses in details, right? I've been such a CEO, entrepreneur, like 50,000 level, like observation, right? That sometimes it's very hard for me to drill down into the details because I've always paid people to do that. But at the end of the day, we all have to be accountable for ourselves, right? I have to be accountable for myself. So the things that I did in business applies to my everyday life. I used to have these assistants and stuff like that. But so I found myself when I look at certain things, I skip over the details. So I'm working on that. Because I skip over the details, my patience is a little weak. So I'm working on that as well, right? One of the things, because of my ability to love with little to no judgment, one of my weaknesses is trying to save too many people, right? And that is all an ego anyway, right? We don't save anyone, right? All we do is we can advise, we can point people in certain directions, right? We can give them wisdom, but people save themselves, right? So for me to really, really understand that and separate that, because I'm not saving anybody. All I'm doing is maybe providing some information because everyone at the end of the day saves themselves, right? And my two biggest ones that I have in bold red is not recognizing and honoring my power. I think all of us don't reach our full potential because we do invite those four doubts, right? I mean, the four D's: doubt, distraction, delusion, and delay. And so, not recognizing and honoring my power 24/7, not recognizing that I'm a winner 24/7 is one of my weaknesses. And that's being vulnerable. In order to really address your weaknesses, you have to tap into vulnerability, right? So, question number 5: what impact do you want to have? And this is one is really kind of deep. For me, I want to positively impact millions of people. And that's not from an ego standpoint. That is just from a collective consciousness to make the world a better place for my children and for my children's children. I want to positively change people's lives right now so that they can actually experience peace. They can experience joy. They can experience thriving and not surviving, right? And I want my children to learn leadership and financial literacy. And those are the things that I'm going to continue to work on and impact. Number 6, what do you want? Now, this one is really, really deep. We did an exercise in one of our trainings, and this question popped up. And obviously, everyone was answering at the surface level, right? All of the material things. And we were asked to challenge ourselves. And once we challenged ourselves, a lot of things actually started to come out. And I'm sharing what came out of mine, right? So it was feeling of peace, feeling love, feeling proud, feeling empowerment. That's on one level. On my relationships, I wanted to have mentorship. I want love. I want partnership, true partnership. I want alignment. I want unwavering confidence. So think about that question in a deeper, more profound way. Question number 7: what does success look like to you? Now, for me, one of the things I was very successful in after my divorce was really finding inner peace. And that's just one aspect of things. What I'm going to do is give you a shortcut. I want you to answer and address this question thinking of the 5 capitals, right? So our 5 capitals are financial and temporal, right? Those are our quantifiables, right? Because we can measure those. But our qualitative capitals are around social, our human capital, most importantly, our psychological capital. So address what success looks like by addressing those 5 capitals and really going into details of which ones what each of those look like. Question 8: how can you have more fun and dominate today, right? Think of all the things that you like to do and make sure that you do it, right? They say, do what you love and love what you do. That's the secret to life. And designing your day is really just figuring out what you like to do and make sure that you have time to do that. Now for the deep questions, the legacy questions, right? Whether you realize it or not, we're all here to make an impact, right? Some of us just on our own offsprings, others on a bigger scale, on a community, and others are meant to impact the world, right? And knowing this, let's look at the final 2 questions, right? Question number 9: how do you describe yourself in the future? What legacy do you want to leave? And that one, I'm not going to give you my answer. I'm going to allow you to think about that on your own so you can address that, because that is a profound question, right? And then finally, question number 10: in 20 years, ask this question: why do they love and respect you? And that is all around the governance of your actions. I'm going to repeat that last one again. In 20 years from today, why do people love and respect you? Now, as simple as these 10 questions sound on the surface, They can profoundly change and shift your life, shift your direction when you take the time to address them and address them deeply. So let's get to the takeaway. The takeaway is this: we need to master our ability to be intentional. And mastery simply means to execute effortlessly without the use of conscious resources, without the use of conscious thought. Now, how do you do that? Practice. Practice. Always, every time I hear that word, I always think of Allen Iverson, right? The video that went viral for some of you. It may not be old enough to remember, but there's a viral video of Allen Iverson, who was just naturally gifted talking about practice, and he was complaining about practice. But that's it. Practice. Repeated iterations, right? Do it repeatedly when you're bad until you become good at it, right? And this applies to everything in life. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Repetition leads to retention. A retention leads to mastery in anything and in everything. And if I were to go a little deeper, it's simply moving through the 4 quadrants of learning. We all start off in the first zone, which is ignorance, right? That is our ability to ignore. But then we're moved into becoming aware. And awareness creates our ability to learn. And through learning, we move. But learning is always difficult, right? It's difficult and uncomfortable, right? It's a far cry from the environment that we're accustomed to. It's instant gratification. And because it's a far cry from instant gratification, we often quit before we reach mastery. We let ourselves off the hook, right? We hold ourselves to a lower standard than we hold other people. And we let ourselves off the hook in a lot of situations. So we end up not reaching mastery, not reaching our full potential. But through the process of elimination, we can learn to master self. It's really understanding and applying this simple formula, WWW versus WWW. And it stands for what went well versus what went wrong, right? This allows us to move through the ignorant quadrant, right? And become aware. And through awareness, we learn. And through learning, we eventually reach mastery. That's being intentional. So the pathway to living intentionally is addressing these 10 questions, right? That add quality to your life. They add clarity, really. And clarity creates energy through the power of thought. And when we don't have clarity, we don't have focus. So the 4 enemies are able to wreak havoc on our mindset. And that distracts us from the things that we want. So stop judging. That keeps us in the ignorant quadrant. We all need to become aware of distraction. Distraction is really our main enemy. It creates doubt. Distraction creates delusion, and it creates delay. And it's not really that we have a lack of discipline. It's really that we have a lack of desire because of a lack of clarity due to not being intentional. Now you know. One love. Today's episode was sponsored by Help to Love, a platform to open your mind, achieve mental agility, and integrate into the person that you're meant to be. With a wealth of resources and expert advice at your fingertips, Help to Love makes prioritizing your mental well-being easier than ever. It's a non-judgmental approach to mental wellness to help you design that 10x life you deserve. Sign up today at www.helptolove.com. Join the thousands of users who have already discovered the transformative power. Register for the free webinar that will open your mind and plant seeds for your ultimate breakthrough. If you felt this episode was helpful and insightful, please like, share, and subscribe so that you'll be notified of all of our upcoming content and special announcements. I'm E.L. Brooks, your host. As always, I thank you for your support and especially your time. One love.